Chuck Daughtry with Coppercoins.com, here to talk to you about an elusive coin that very few people knew anything about until recently. It's the Christmas Eve proof cent. 1909, they minted 2,364 Lincoln cents for the proof sets that do not have the VDB initials on the reverse. This was the second of two varieties minted for that year, and all of them had been thought to be minted by one particular die pair. Now, this particular die pair has markers on it that a lot of people tend to know and look for in genuine Lincoln cents. On the obverse, you have a die scratch extending from the back of the jacket up toward the R in Liberty. There's also a number of die scratches on and around the nose. And the earlier, what I call the shallow notched N reverse, was used on all of these particular examples. Also, you can find that there are die scratches to some degree or another along the bottom of the design. Sometimes they show up a little better than others, especially on red coins. And I use three different coins here to show you the markers on the left side of the reverse design. They're on all of the coins, but they are visible to different degrees based on toning, on luster remaining, things like that. Now the second set of dies that were used shows a die scratch from the M extending up over the E in one. Also has a number of little die scratches in and around E pluribus unum. You've also got a couple of die scratches, one inside the C and one extending east from the middle of the E of cent. On the obverse, you have a die gouge that extends downward from the left side of the T of Liberty. There's also a number of smaller die scratches in and around the area of In God We Trust. Along the bottom of the bust, there are parallel die scratches. And then just below that, in the space between the bust and the rim, there's also a number of other little die scratches and die gouges. Now, you remember where I told you about this being the earlier hub design with what I call the shallow notched N. If you look at the N on both of these two designs, they're both from 1909 Lincoln cents. And you'll notice that the one on the top has very lacking a lot of design, or lacking a lot of definition in the inside notches on the N. Also, the corners of the other letters in United and in States of America actually have more rounded off edges that are not quite as straight in that stylized font that Victor David Brenner used in the wheat cent design. Now, there is a difference between these. If you look very closely, you'll notice that the T on the upper design has a longer top than on the lower design. On the lower design, it's a little bit shorter. Same thing with the E. The E has a slightly different shape between these two designs. Why is that important? Well, as it turns out, this new die discovered of 1909 matte-proof Lincoln cent is a double die reverse. That's a 1909 P 1DR008. It's proof. It's a class 3 double die reverse, and I gave it 3 stars for visibility, meaning that there are pickup points all over the reverse, and if you know what you're looking for, that's not very hard to see. Now, it's a class 3 design hub doubled because that is where you take one design and you hub it over a different design on a die. Usually this happens in more obvious ways with large dates over small dates, small dates over large dates. Or in the case of 1949 in San Francisco, they had 3 different dies created with where the first hubbing was with a hub of a 1948 Lincoln cent. And then they hubbed over that with 1949, leaving us a 4 that has a squared off top over a blunt rounded top. The difference between the 1948 and 1949 4-digit. Why is this important? Well, the 1949 was the first Lincoln cent known to have Class 3 hub doubling prior to this particular instance. This particular instance is the earliest, actually, because, well, it's 1909 proof. And here is the doubling for you. You can see that on the N, you've got the shallow notched and the deep notched N together. You can see characteristics of both designs on the N of United. Here's those designs again. You can take a look and you can see that you have characteristics of both of these N's together on one coin. Also, we've got very nice doubling on the TE of United and any other of the design elements across United States of America that happen to be different from one another between the early hub design and the later hub design. Now, in an article published in 2010 on PCGS website by Kevin Flynn and Brian Wagner, Kevin Flynn supposes that it's likely that all of these coins were minted on Christmas Eve, 1909. Well, I did an exhaustive study online and found images of up to 103 different proof Lincoln cents from 1909, and here's what I found. The 1909 matte proof, your total coins minted, 2,342. So a total of 2,342 minted. And you have an August mintage of 1,662 coins for about 71% of the overall mintage of 1909 PMAT proofs. And then in December 8th, there was an order placed and coins created for 500 more proof sets. And then it's believed that they retired the dies after that. Then they needed a new lot of coins, 180 more, on December 24th. Now, why do we believe that the dies were retired after the December 8th mintage and the new dies were created only for the for the December 24th? Well, here's my study. I found 103 all different 1909 matte proof Lincoln cents in photos that were large enough for me to be able to determine which reverse die was used. Of that, I found 7 of those 103 coins were double dies. That's about 6.79% of the overall mintage. If you'll remember, the December 8th mintage represented about 21% of the overall mintage, or 500 coins. The December 24th mintage was 180 coins, or about 7.68%. Well, if you take the 500 plus the 180 and assume that the second die pair was used throughout the month of December, that would be about 28% of the overall sample. So, the sample being that there were only 7 found, and that's 6.79% of the overall sample, and then the December 24th mintage being 180 coins at 7.68% of the overall mintage of 1909 PMAT proof Lincoln cents. They're very close to one another. So I think it's relatively safe to make the assumption that the 1909 PMAT proof double die reverse, it's a class 3 double die reverse. We have an assumed 180 coin mintage, and all of them were minted on Christmas Eve, 1909. My references for this video were the 1909 matte proof new coin die discovered. It's on the PCGS website, written by Brian Wagner and Kevin Flynn. And there is a link to that article. And then the PCGS CoinFacts website, where I went to find a number of the images that I used in this video. The Heritage Auction database, where I was able to look at a number of coins going all the way back to 1999 that sold. And the 1909 PMAT proof cent submitted to me by Sean J. Johnson, which happens to be this very rare and elusive die. That's all I've got for now. I appreciate you watching. If you like this video, subscribe, and don't forget, ring that bell to get notifications on future videos as time goes by. I appreciate it. Have a good one.